The Sealed Cave. It was meant to be a simple homecoming adventure. November 24th, 2009. 26-year-old medical student and young father, John Edward Jones, joined his brother and friends to explore Utah's infamous Nutty Putty Cave. The air inside was thick and still. The walls glistened with a strange clay-like film, soft, sticky, and suffocating. That's how the cave got its name. Nutty Putty. A place both fascinating and feared. This wasn't a beginner's cave. Its tight, twisting tunnels had trapped more than a few explorers before. In fact, it had been closed for safety back in 2004 after a string of dangerous rescues. But in a risky move, it was reopened just 6 months before John's visit, a decision that would soon prove fatal. Deep underground, John decided to find a tunnel called the Birth Canal. Crawling headfirst into the darkness, he maneuvered through a narrow gap, his helmet scraping rock. But the path he chose wasn't the birth canal. It was an unmapped dead end, no more than 18 inches wide and 10 inches high. When he tried to back out, his chest compressed. When he inhaled, his lungs expanded, locking him in place. Pinned at a 70-degree angle, upside down, 150 feet below the surface, he was trapped like a cork in a bottle. What followed was one of the most complex cave rescues in U.S. history. Over 100 rescuers worked non-stop for 28 hours, setting up rope systems and drilling anchors into the unstable clay. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, they managed to lift him several feet. Hope flickered. Then one anchor ripped free from the wall. The system collapsed. John slipped back even deeper. In that final stretch, his body couldn't endure the inverted pressure. His heart struggled, his lungs filled with fluid, and eventually, he was gone. Retrieving his body was deemed too dangerous. So officials made a heartbreaking choice. They sealed the cave permanently, encasing John inside the stone that claimed him. Today, Nutty Putty Cave remains closed forever, a concrete tomb, a chilling reminder of how one wrong turn can become eternal. The shoe mistake, Richard Reed. Before 2001, flying was effortless. No long security lines, no liquid bans, no one asking you to take off your shoes. You could stroll straight to your gate, calm, casual, carefree. Then came Richard Reed, a man whose failure reshaped air travel forever. Reed wasn't a genius or a mastermind, just a small-time criminal who turned extremist in prison. A pawn in a larger network, sent to carry out a mission he barely understood. On December 29, 2001, he tried to board a flight from Paris to Miami. The warning signs were everywhere: messy hair, no luggage, cash payment. Security pulled him aside, questioned him for hours, and finally refused him entry. He was told to try again tomorrow. So he did. The next day, wearing the same shoes, only now packed with explosives, Reed boarded the flight. Midair, passengers noticed a strange smell: burning. A flight attendant found him crouched over, trying to light a fuse attached to his sneaker. The first attempt failed. The explosive was damp from his sweat. He tried again. When the attendant grabbed him, he bit her hand. Passengers leapt from their seats, tackling him to the floor. A tall man pinned him down while others tied him with belts and cords. 2 doctors sedated him until the plane landed safely. Later, investigators found fingerprints and hair on the bomb, none of them his. The true bomb maker was never found. Reed's clumsy failure didn't destroy the plane, but it changed aviation forever. Because of one man and one pair of shoes, billions of travelers now walk barefoot through airport security every single day. The game show glitch, The Price is Right. December 16, 2008. The studio of The Price is Right erupted in cheers, laughter, and pure disbelief. A 60-year-old weatherman named Terry Neese stood on stage for the final showcase. The prizes? A karaoke machine, a pool table, and a 16-foot camper. Calmly, he made his bid. $23,743. The crowd waited. Drew Carey opened the envelope. The actual retail price, $23,743, a perfect bid. The audience exploded. But Drew Carey didn't smile, he froze. The show had been running for 36 years, and no one had ever guessed the exact price. Production stopped. Security stepped in. Something wasn't right. Was the show rigged? Was Terry cheating? Not exactly. The real mastermind wasn't on stage at all. He was in the audience. His name was Ted Slauson, a lifelong Price is Right superfan. For decades, Ted had watched and recorded every episode. He'd built a private database of prizes, memorizing the cost of everything. From cars and couches to cereal and toothpaste, he'd cracked the system. The show was recycling the same prizes, often at the exact same prices. Ted had attended countless tapings, shouting correct bids to contestants, and the producers hated it. They even tried banning him, but Ted kept coming back, sometimes in disguise. That day, his friend Terry made it onto the stage. Ted, sitting in the audience, quietly signaled the exact number, first with 3 fingers for 23,000, then flashing 743. Terry repeated it word for word. When the number hit perfectly, the producers were stunned. They hadn't been cheated. They'd been outsmarted. After that day, The Price is Right was never the same. The show overhauled its entire system, retiring old prizes, working with new vendors, and adding random numbers to throw off pattern trackers. One man's obsessive love for a game forced a legendary show to change forever. The return scam, LL Bean. For more than a century, LL Bean stood by a promise no one else dared to make, the 100% satisfaction guarantee. Created in 1912 by Leon Wood Bean himself, it was simple. If you're not happy, we'll make it right. No limits, no questions. If your 10-year-old boots got chewed up by your dog, send them back. If your jacket finally ripped after 2 decades, full refund. For 106 years, that policy wasn't just marketing. It was legend. It built a loyal following and made LL Bean one of the most trusted brands in America. And then, in 2018, it vanished. The company shocked customers by announcing a strict new rule: returns only within 1 year, with proof of purchase. Why end something that defined them for generations? Because a few people found a way to turn honesty into a business. A new type of scammer emerged: the thrift store flipper. They scoured yard sales and Goodwill racks, buying old, battered LL Bean gear for pennies. Then they'd walk into stores and return them for full retail cash refunds. Some made thousands. One man alone reportedly pocketed over $50,000. Others showed up with garbage bags full of worn-out jackets and boots they'd never even bought, demanding brand new replacements. It was bleeding the company dry, costing MCA estimated $250 million a year. In the end, LL Bean had a brutal choice: raise prices for loyal customers, or end the century-old policy entirely. They chose survival. And so, because a few saw a promise as a loophole, one of the most beloved guarantees in retail history was gone forever. The balloon disaster. Balloon Fest 86, September 27, 1986, Cleveland, Ohio was about to make history. The plan was simple: set a world record and raise money for charity by releasing 1.5 million balloons into the sky. For months, volunteers worked tirelessly, filling each balloon with helium and packing them under a massive net that covered an entire city. They called it Balloon Fest 86, a spectacle meant to unite a city and dazzle the world. At exactly 1:50 p.m., the ropes were cut. The crowd roared as a swirling storm of color erupted overhead, millions of balloons rising together like a living rainbow. For about 30 seconds, it was beautiful. Then everything went wrong. A cold front had been moving in, bringing rain and 40-mile-per-hour winds. Instead of floating away, the balloons hit the frigid, wet air, stalled, and began to fall. What was supposed to be a breathtaking display turned into chaos. The sky rained rubber. 1.5 million balloons fell back to Earth, covering the city in latex. Streets clogged. Drivers crashed. Airport runways shut down. And over Lake Erie, the surface turned into a floating carpet of balloons. That's where the celebration became a tragedy. Earlier that day, Two fishermen, Raymond Broderick and Bernard Sulzer, had gone missing on the lake. A Coast Guard helicopter was sent to find them, but when rescuers arrived, they couldn't see the water. The entire lake was covered in balloons, bobbing, spinning, blurring the line between a human head and a floating orb. The search had to be called off. 2 days later, the men's bodies washed ashore. Their families sued the United Way for $3.2 million. Another lawsuit came from a horse owner whose prized animals had panicked during the balloon storm, crashing through a fence and suffering permanent injuries. The event that was meant to inspire joy had ended in lawsuits, chaos, and loss. Since that day, mass balloon releases have been banned in many cities across the world, all because one record-breaking celebration forgot to check the weather. The nuclear vlogger in 2019, a small-time YouTuber named Marcus Thompson, decided to take urban exploration to a level no one had ever dared before. His target? The Davis-Besse nuclear power plant in Ohio. Not abandoned, not decommissioned. Fully active. Marcus didn't have hacking tools, fake IDs, or inside access. He simply found a hole in the fence, a small maintenance gap that no one had bothered to fix, and walked right in. For the next 5 hours, he wandered around the restricted, owner-controlled areas of a functioning nuclear facility, filming everything: turbines, security gates, sensitive layouts, even close-ups of restricted equipment, and despite triggering multiple silent alarms, no one came. Security didn't notice a thing. He was finally caught not inside the plant, but while leaving it, spotted by a guard by pure chance. When the footage surfaced online, it sent shockwaves through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, and the entire energy sector. The video showed in painful detail how one man with a camera had exposed massive security failures at one of America's most critical infrastructure sites. The fallout was immediate. The NRC launched a nationwide investigation, forcing the Davis-Besse plant into a full security lockdown and multi-million-dollar overhaul. But the consequences didn't stop there. Thompson's reckless stunt forced every nuclear plant in the United States to review and tighten its perimeter defenses, security zones, and response protocols. All because one vlogger wanted cool footage. One man, one camera, and a hole in the fence. That's all it took to expose how fragile the system truly was. The goalpost breaker, Jimmy Graham. For years, the goalpost dunk was a fun NFL tradition. A tight end or receiver would score a touchdown and leap to slam the ball over the crossbar. Flashy, harmless, and electrifying for fans. Then came Jimmy Graham. At 6'7" and 265 pounds, the New Orleans Saints tight end didn't just dunk. He shook the goalpost like it was a rag doll. He grabbed the crossbar with his full weight, twisting and jerking it violently. Stadium crews had to rush out after almost every dunk to realign the posts, which are precision instruments. The league warned him. He ignored it. The breaking point came in 2013 during a primetime game against the Atlanta Falcons. Graham scored and slammed the goalpost so hard it bent. The broadcast, watched by millions, stopped for 20 minutes while stadium staff scrambled with ladders and levels to fix the damage. This wasn't just a delay. Advertisers pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for 30-second spots, timed to the second. A 20-minute unscheduled stoppage? Millions lost. Contracts violated. Chaos. By 2014, the NFL had had enough. They banned the dunk entirely, instituting the Jimmy Graham rule. Any player attempting a goalpost dunk would receive a 15-yard unsportsmanlike penalty and a hefty fine. Graham himself was fined $30,000 for breaking the rule during preseason. One man's refusal to curb his celebration had destroyed one of the sport's most iconic moves, forever. The metal detector ban Richland, Washington is a place of history. Perched on the banks of the Columbia River, it sits on land sacred to the Wanapam Yakama and Umatilla tribes. Nearby lies the Hanford site, a decommissioned nuclear production complex from the Manhattan Project. The city's parks? A treasure trove of archaeological and historical artifacts. For years, local metal detector enthusiasts worked responsibly, following strict rules to preserve the past. But then one man decided the rules didn't apply to him. This treasure hunter wasn't hunting coins or trinkets. He was performing unauthorized archaeology. He dug massive holes near historical markers, under protected trees, and ripped apart priceless artifacts, all in search of fame or fortune. The breaking point came when he stumbled upon what appeared to be a Native American burial site. Instead of calling experts, he kept digging, destroying sacred and irreplaceable artifacts. Caught eventually, the damage was irreversible. The city council faced a harsh choice. Let one reckless man continue desecrating history, or protect the collective past. They chose to punish everyone. All metal detecting in Richland's parks was banned, immediately and permanently. Decades of trust, careful hobbyists, and community engagement were erased because one person ignored the rules. The Python disaster in 1992, Florida's Everglades were a delicate, balanced ecosystem. By 1993, everything had changed. The culprit? Hurricane Andrew, a Category 5 monster that tore through South Florida. But the storm didn't create the problem. It unleashed it. Inside the hurricane's path was Quira Specialties, a massive exotic animal facility run by reptile breeder Professor Burt. This wasn't a small pet shop. It was a hub for importing and breeding rare reptiles, including hundreds of Burmese pythons. When Andrew hit, cages collapsed. Doors ripped open. And the snakes, hundreds, possibly thousands, slithered into the Everglades' warm, wet, predator-free environment. It was paradise for predators. Today, estimates suggest 100,000 to 300,000 pythons roam the Everglades. These apex predators can grow over 20 feet long and weigh more than 200 pounds. They've decimated local wildlife. Raccoons, possums, and bobcats have plummeted by over 90%. They're eating deer. Even alligators aren't safe. What started as one breeder's carelessness, combined with a hurricane, has cost Florida hundreds of millions in eradication programs, bounties, and ecological repair. By 2021, the state finally banned the sale, breeding, and possession of Burmese pythons and 15 other dangerous reptiles. But it was too late. The damage was already done. One man's facility, one storm, and a single moment of escape created a 30-year ecological nightmare. The sticky legend, Lester Hayes. Lester Hayes was one of the NFL's greatest cornerbacks and one of its most notorious cheaters. His secret weapon? Stickum, a gooey, sticky adhesive he applied not just to his hands, but to his entire uniform. Arms, chest, socks, all coated in his gooey chewy. He even kept a jar on the sidelines, reapplying it like sunscreen. Other players didn't call him a competitor. They called him human flypaper. During games, any football that grazed Hayes stuck instantly. In 1980, he intercepted 13 passes, won Defensive Player of the Year, and helped his team win the Super Bowl. But the stickiness came at a cost. By the end of a game, the football itself was a gummy mess, and officials constantly swapped out balls. His own team had to give him a new jersey at halftime because the old one had become a hazard. Hayes had taken a legal tool and pushed it to the extreme. It wasn't just catching passes, fumbles became impossible. Once the ball was in his hands, it would not come loose. The NFL had no choice. In 1981, they banned all sticky substances, creating the Lester Hayes rule. His stats plummeted. 13 interceptions in 1980 became just 4 in 1981, but his legacy didn't end there. The ban inspired a revolution. The modern tacky high-grip receiver glove, an entire industry was born from one man being too sticky to ignore. One man. One sticky habit. One permanent change to the game. If you found these mistakes as wild as we did, hit like, subscribe to Strange Wise, and tap the bell so you never miss another story of history's biggest blunders.